dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start. Healing the world, one open heart. From the battles fought to the words unsaid, through heavy burdens, the paths we tread. From the songs we sing to the fears we face, we find our strength in shared embrace. Voices rising, hearts awake, through every moment, the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire, transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start. Healing the world, one open heart. An open heart. From the battles fought to the
Welcome to Courage to Converse, where we discuss tough topics, reflect on personal experiences, and explore paths for growth and understanding. Before we dive in, I want to acknowledge that some conversations may touch on sensitive or challenging issues. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or support. If you or someone you know is struggling, resources are available to help. In the U.S., you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or text HOME to 741741 to reach the crisis text line. Remember, our goal here is to spark meaningful conversations while fostering respect, understanding, and personal growth. So let's get started.
Welcome to Courage Converse. This week we have a new guest with us. Hello. Those of you who heard this before a couple weeks ago. And then we have JoJo here with us again as well.
Hello.
He is officially dubbed the co-host of Courage to Converse for us. So I apologize for being late, but got a little ink therapy today. Much needed. Sabrina, you're awesome. You're a good person. You and your husband are amazing. And for those of you who don't know, this lady has done some pretty amazing things for herself and for the community. Go to this convention. Do yourself a favor. Go to see this convention. You won't regret it. I'm planning on going. I think we're going to have some good things going on there with the podcast and some of the things we got going on with our nonprofit and everything. So go ahead and join in there. Today's topic is going to be one that's a very near and dear person in my life. We don't talk often, but she played a major role in shaping me to who I am today. She was that one that used to come to my mom's house and my house and pull my ass out of bed when I didn't want to go to school. I was being that badass little teenager, and she would come in there and tell me to get my ass up and go to school. It's the right thing to do, and her and her husband and my best friend at the time, we were very close. We were tight. We were inseparable. They kind of brought me in, took me under their wings, and over the past few weeks, she's been following what we've been doing on the podcast, and we've been reaching out. And you know, even though we have some differences and things, we're actually quite the same if you think about it. But needless to say, we've been talking about things and being good people and understanding each other and stuff like that. And the topic of empathy came out. This just came out a couple days ago, and I was like, you know what? Empathy is going to be my next topic, or going to be a topic. And today it turned into be my next topic because the original guest I had planned had some health issues going on. She wasn't going to be able to join, and then my tattoo thing came up, and timing. It worked out because I think this topic is going to touch, at least touch me and maybe a couple of people in a good way. So we'll go ahead and get started. Before we get started, does anybody have anything to say? Before? And we do have another guest, but she's kind of hiding in the background. She doesn't want to say anything, but she's here. She's our haunt mom. She's here. She's back there. Wave your hand. There she is. All right, so we'll get started. Empathy. One of these things is, this is what we talked about last week, right? About actually being a good person, understanding people, listening to understand, not listening to respond, right? We were talking about religion and everything back last week. You know, people have beliefs and everything, but the common thing behind all of those religions and everything was what? Love, humanity, empathy, those are all the common things behind all of them. Whether you believe in one or the other or none of them, this all still applies to life. If you honestly try to understand somebody where they're at in life, at that moment in life, right? They need somebody there to understand them. I need them to understand me, right? Because if we can't take that time to understand who somebody is, like you're gonna judgment comes and things like that, right? And so we'll get into that. So I'm gonna bring you into the play on that. I have some notes here, and I do have the song every week. Like we've mentioned, every week we're gonna have a song that goes along with the topic. The song is called "Inside Each Other's Shoes." Basically, it's understanding each other, stepping into each other's shoes, reaching into each other, and understanding each other. Right? You help me understand where you're at. I'm going to help you understand it together. We can come out of this as a better person, as united. So one of the things I wanted to first start off with is, as I was doing the research and typing those things up, I was talking to Wendy. If you're out there, I don't think you're watching yet, but if you are, this is because of you, and I love you very much. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Unlike sympathy, which involves feeling pity for someone, or compassion, which motivates action, empathy focuses on connection. Again, understanding where you are, listening to understand what you got going on. You have things in your life that have happened that I didn't go through, right? You have things that you didn't go through. You don't understand where I'm coming from. I don't understand where you're coming from. There's same for you. You don't know those things, but if we can talk about it and I can understand them, maybe if I had any judgment, I can understand and have a little bit of leniency, or you can give me some leniency and things like that, because we all have a story, right? And you've heard me say this before. Sometimes there's three sides to every story. There's your side, their side, and something in between. That's the reality of it. But in the end, the empathy, trying to understand where that person is what matters. It makes us actually the good person. That's not to say that we're not going to make mistakes and we're not going to shut people out or don't want people to understand us, because we got to try to understand where that person is at the time. For example, imagine a friend sharing their struggles at work. Sympathy will lead you to say, "Oh, that sounds real tough," right? While empathy encourages you to ask, "How are you coping with that? How does that make you feel?" And truly listen to what they're saying, understanding what they're saying, feel what they're saying. Put yourself in their shoes and try to, if you had to, close your eyes and imagine what they're going through, feel their story, and don't listen to respond, listen to understand. I tell my kids this all the time. And we're all guilty of it, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when we're in the heat of a moment, we're going to sit there, we're going to talk, we're going to argue and all that. But we want to respond. But that just, if it's a heated conversation, it's going to get heated even more, right? So don't throw fuel to the fire. Stop, slow down, try to understand where that person's at that point. Building authentic connections, empathy fosters trust and creates deeper relationships by showing others that their experiences and emotions are valued. Again, the people they're talking to you, they want you to hear them. They want you to understand them. They want to know that you're there for them. They want you to know. Sometimes that's all they need is someone to listen. Mm-hmm. They don't need someone to talk to them. They don't need someone to tell them that they're right or wrong, or tell them what they need to hear or need. Like sometimes they just need to listen. Right? That's all they need.
Just listen.
Yes. Now, we got some notes in here about the science of empathy and things like that. I didn't do enough research into it to say, but there's physical things within our body and our brain where empathy connects, right? Neurons and all those things. I'm not a scientist, and I will never pretend to be, but there is scientific things about empathy, right? There's research out there that shows, if you can show empathy and things like that, you can come out of situations faster, if you can understand and you can relate and things like that. So, the next one, empathy in action, de-escalating conflicts. Empathy allows us to approach disagreements with understanding, right? That's exactly what we just talked about. Understand where the other person's at, Don't go there and judge and argue, and it's hard not to. It's easier said than done. If we make a conscious effort at it, it's easier than we think. I've done this personally in my life for the past couple of years, making a conscious effort to be a better person. It takes listening. It takes understanding. You put myself in check. My family puts me in check. My brother, people put me in check when I'm overreacting, and they're just not hearing me. They're just, but we're trying to help that.
That's why one of the sayings that I put out there to everybody is meet people where they are,
Right.
not where you expect them or want them to be.
Right.
And empathy is a huge part of that.
Yeah. Understanding.
You have to understand
who they are,
at.
where they are. That statement you said, I've repeated it many times since then because it matters. It means a lot, because where they are at in that moment in time, not where you want them to be or where they want to be, because they're not ready to be. They want to be there, but they just maybe need to take a few extra steps or something like that. So understand rather than judge. Don't turn these arguments into more than they need to be. Make them productive, right? And sometimes it takes us to shut our mouth, shoot the fuck up sometimes, Those words are coming out of my mouth when I'm telling somebody in my own family, which is not good, but they'll come out of my mouth because they're just, I can't even talk. They're just responding immediately with no, not even trying to hear what I'm saying. I'm also guilty of that of myself, right? And some of these will come out in another one, doing a self-inventory of us, like find our own faults. What are we doing about these things, right? And that's where we have these building blocks to become a better person, at least try to be. You know what I mean?
2 years, 1 hour.
You're right. Damn right. And so, to this point, you guys have anything to add or mention? No? All right. Here's a transformative example. Leaders like Nelson Mandela used empathy to unite divided communities, demonstrating its power to create lasting change. Why is that? Why do you think that is? How do you think he was successful with it?
Well, for me, it's just like you said. It's not about coming to a conclusion. If you can understand somebody, you can find empathy in a situation, that you're far more apt to compromise, or even sometimes go with what they're wanting, because you can see where they're coming from. Like, okay, well, I don't agree with it,
Yeah.
but I see why you feel that way.
Right.
And
I'm trying to meet you in the middle, or
right.
You don't feel strongly enough. It's not worth arguing over.
And with empathy, actually, yeah. So you can bring people together. That's how you create a community. Is you learn to understand each
other. Understanding doesn't mean agreeing.
No.
At all.
Well,
right.
He understood the oppressive side and the nation that was oppressed and the oppressors. He understood and listened to both sides.
Right.
And was open with that whole conversation.
Was he like a mediator? Exactly.
And he brought balance to a completely unbalanced system.
Right.
He changed the world that way too.
Right.
In teaching us to actually pay attention and listen and feel.
So I got a questions I'm going to ask everybody, and everybody will get a chance to respond. I'm going to pop them up here on the board. The first one is, how do you define empathy in your own words, Lay?
For me, it's just trying to take yourself and put it in someone else's shoes. Try not necessarily understand, because you can't understand. You did not experience or perceive the experience the way that they did. You'll never understand if you haven't gone through it.
Right.
But you can understand why that situation would make them feel the way that they feel. Right. So for me, it's learning to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and maybe not necessarily agree, but be able to see where they're coming. Understand. Maybe
try to relate some of your own personal life situations to it, because if you think about it, a lot of those things, people who have, especially like trauma and things like that, different types of trauma can relate, because it causes similar type of pain
situation,
but it causes the same reaction.
Feelings, right? The feelings are the same. I understand how you feel.
Yep.
I felt that way when I went through this.
Yep. And then at that point, you potentially can have a common bond. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how we help each other build. How about you, JoJo? How would you define empathy in your own words?
For me, it's connection. When you can understand another person, we have connections with even pets. There has to be empathy involved there too.
Right.
I mean, love for a pet and everything like that is the same that we do with people. Pet can't verbalize like people can. So they do it through their body language, right? So when the cat rubs its head on your forehead, that's a true sign of connection, right? Well, that's empathy bouncing back and forth,
right?
Where words don't even have to be spoken. That's just an understood language there. With people, the connection, the way that I look at it is, I could flip this light switch on and off, on and off, on and off. If it's not plugged in, it's not going to light and illuminate my face. But until I connect with that other individual, that other piece, now we can illuminate our situation together.
I like that.
For me, it's connection.
I like the analogy you use with pets because, Cammy, our cat, has been locked upstairs for the past few months because of, the Christmas trees and all that stuff. And she'll sneak downstairs and, shit, damn it, and we're all pissed and angry. And we come with the empathy part. You guys put all the Christmas stuff up and, she finally got to come downstairs. And last night, even though I was the one that was mostly screaming and yelling, she came up and just loving on me, like, thank you for letting me come down. And she's an animal, but you can feel it. You can sense it. She lay down right there and just cuddled right next to me and loved on me. And, even today, I was going downstairs and she's like, oh, he's not going to put me back upstairs again? Okay, cool. I got this. She come up and she rubbed on me, and that's a very good point. Empathy doesn't have to be people.
No.
It's an emotional type thing. It's a connection. It's understanding. I understand where Cammy was coming from. She wanted to be down there. She wanted to be all up in the trees and stuff. We don't want her to be, but she was telling us all along, I want that connection with y'all. Y'all are my people.
Yeah, leave me upstairs by myself.
Right. Yeah, I agree with both of you. It's that understanding, I think, is what empathy is. It's an understanding of where somebody is, to your point, to where they are at that point. Because empathy today may be different than what it is 2 years from now or what it was 2 years before and everything like that. It's understanding where that person is and trying to, I personally, the connection part, like try to literally, if you can close your eyes and like, oh, I can't understand. Like I feel that, like I understand, and I try to always take it to a little bit further. Like, what can I do for that? How can I help you through that? What can I do to be there for you? So I understand that. Right. The next one is going to be, can you share a moment when empathy transformed a difficult situation in your life? Jojo.
I'd have to say when I married David, I think when I made that decision, there was a huge part of me that knew what the motivation was behind it, and I knew that it wasn't genuine love from his end of it. It was from mine because it's been from the rip.
Right.
I knew that he loved me then, but it wasn't, I'm ready to marry you love kind of thing.
Right.
I did it for another reason. But in that moment, when the papers were turned in and the woman on the other side of the desk looked at both of us, shook our hands, and congratulated us, at that point, I saw it in his face. And when we got to the car, like, he's like got tears the whole way to the car. And he's like, "You're not crying?" I'm like, "No." I said, "I know why you are now, because I think I can see that you finally get it." I could feel at that point the same thing that I know he feels for me.
Right.
And that's where that empathy connection hit. And that has transformed our relationship since.
Right. Well, I see it in him, like, that boy loves you.
Yeah.
I see it. I feel it. I understand. Lay?
No.
You don't like this question? You don't have to answer it.
Skip and go to you.
Absolutely. All right. So I have a moment. It's not specifically affecting me, but it's somebody that I know that is near and dear to my haunt family, that empathy for this person, there was a lot of heated and contention about being a little aggressive, right? And however, I understood where that person was at that moment in time. The hard part was trying to get other people to understand that, right? That empathy, trying to understand where that person was at that moment in time. However, I think I've been pretty successful at understanding that point. And people need to understand that. They need to understand where that person is at that moment in life. They don't know what's going on with them. That's why I encouraged everybody, talk to somebody, get to know them, understand them. Where are they? Ask them questions. You can't judge, you can't get mad, you can't get angry if you don't know what's going on, right? So it wasn't really affecting me. However, it did affect me, right? This is my haunt family. This is, so that's a moment that I think is a little bit transformed, because I think it was a positive thing, although it was a lot of negative going on at the heat of the moment. A lot of positive is coming out of it. So, you want to answer that one yet?
Just can't think of anything specific.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
What about the feeling of the privilege?
I mean, what do you mean? How would that fit with empathy?
You're sharing that bond with your husband.
But no, because a bond for a mother and a baby and a bond for a father and a baby is completely different.
But the bond and the empathy between you and your husband. No.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying no to that. I've got one for you, and you don't even know. It happened very recently.
Yeah.
For the New Year?
Yeah. I mean, that was me. I'm
You were being empathetic.
I'm big on empathy. I'm an empath. I'm very big on
plenty of examples.
Yeah. But when you get put on the spot and you're just like, someone that I don't know how to explain this without putting his stuff out there.
You don't have to say names. You don't have to say what.
I sucked up my scorned woman pride and had my ex-husband. Well, I mean, me and my husband had our ex-husband stay with us this year for New Year's, so that my son could play the virtual reality games with him that he's been playing with his dad, and they could show works and they can actually spend a New Year's together.
Did you guys have a good time?
Great time. So that his dad didn't have to, because his dad was
loaded with empathy.
And I felt bad for him because he was alone at Christmas, and so
co-parenting, not easy.
Yes, no,
right.
That's the kind of co-parenting relationship I wanted from the get-go, and it took 10 years to get there.
Is it still going that way?
For now, yeah.
And what is it making you a better person? You showed that empathy, and in the end, that's what empathy is to me.
Oh, I didn't want to do it, but I did it. I'm glad I did it.
You needed to do it. It's hard to do those things. That's what matters. Well, it's hard to do those things.
And if nothing else, I feel like it was a good lesson for him.
Right.
It showed him, that mom and dad can put their differences aside.
Forgive and forget.
Mom and Dustin,
at least
perfectly okay with allowing dad to come be a part of our life so that I can spend time with him, and it shows him that, sometimes he knew that his dad wasn't there to hang out with me,
right.
So sometimes taking other people's feelings into consideration and putting their wants first.
Being empathetic. See? You did it. Okay.
Oh, me.
All right. The next one. What do you think are the biggest barriers to empathy in today's society? I didn't add all the questions out in here because some of the questions I think play a role into this one. So what do you think are the biggest barriers to empathy in today's society?
Me? Judgment is number one. Closed-mindedness is number two.
How do those play a role? Like what? Why?
Well,
judgment. Go over the first one. Judgment.
Well, if you're automatically judging, you cannot be it for anyone else.
Right.
You already have it set in your head.
Mm-hmm.
One way or the other, how you're going to feel automatically.
Right.
And that's the whole judge a book by its cover thing. You shut empathy out.
Not even trying.
But you can retract and build from there and
Right.
try to fix and mend that fence. The other thing with, and that goes along with closed-minded. Closed-minded people in general, and it's not just empathy, it's everything.
Mhm.
You're gonna look at the triad.
Well, closed-minded with anything, work. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we've been doing this for 20 years. Doesn't mean it's the best way to do it.
Right.
Times change.
Why are
You
you
have to
there?
evolve.
For the next 20 years, March a billionaire.
Yeah.
There's always something that can be improved.
And then social media.
You took mine.
Well, it's just because it's
Well, I don't do
so blank. There's no, it's emotionless.
Well, I think it adds on to those two first things that it puts judgment out there on
That
people,
too.
right? And it makes people
Defensive.
and it makes people will put things out on Facebook and social media that aren't real, so that it makes people judge them automatically. Oh, that's not what they really look like. But maybe there's a reason that person's doing it. Maybe they're not self-confident. Maybe they feel like they have to, and they feel pretty when they do those things, or they feel better about themselves. But deep down, they're hurting or whatever. But if you, instead of just judging, just like, hey, why you put a filter on there? That's you. You look better without,
Right.
truly understanding why is that person doing it. Is big.
Mm-hmm.
What you, Ellen? What do you think are the biggest barriers to empathy in today's society?
ADHD brain. I had something. Give me a second. I literally had something because y'all were tiptoeing around it, and then I just lost it.
Social media.
Mm-hmm.
Just like people don't stop and think. No one takes the time to stop and think. Like, listen. Don't just listen and hear the words that are coming out of their mouth. Take a moment to actually think what they're saying.
Listen to understand.
Yeah, exactly. Listen to understand. Don't sit down and try to be one step ahead of everything. But so you already have a response program to move on to the next. Like, you're not.
And I think social media, that was what I really wanted to put onto. Social media plays a major role in that.
Conversation. You're not actually in the conversation in the moment.
And Facebook will do that. People put something on, and people are immediately responding and everything without no thought about it and just responding. We were talking about this with Sabrina tonight. People putting shit out there on Facebook and talking trash, and they don't even know the reality of what's actually going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And no thought into it, just diarrhea of the mouth. No empathy at all in that. Well, you'd actually realize that she's doing the damn thing.
Right. Or read the scripting that's in it.
Right.
Now they read the first couple sentences and then they're and it's like, wait, it was already answered. It's literally in there. If you would have read the whole thing, you would have seen the answer to your whole objection.
Oh, I love that.
It's my favorite.
Yep. Have you seen those posts? Posted them in the past because I think they're funny. But be like, oh, I've damn these people, they've broken into my house, blah, 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 blah. But at the very end, this is a joke and all that. And people respond, oh, what happened? They didn't read the whole thing, obviously, because this is a joke. Point made, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, the next one. I mean, I've been got by a couple of those. They're funny. What steps do you take to ensure you truly listening to someone else's perspective? Jujo.
Well, I still struggle with that from day to day. Point being with my husband, with the situation I'm trying to deal with now with him, with the whole attire change, and now we're talking about adding new dimensions to the look. Is I'm still in the process of processing,
trying to understand,
and I'm trying to put myself where he's at this time, when it's not something that was ever discussed before,
right?
And now all of a sudden this glamorous thing, and is it for attention? What are we doing here?
I don't want to discuss anything that we're not supposed to discuss.
Not discuss anything.
Well, I mean, is it not possibly a newfound sense of freedom? If you get what I'm saying.
But that freedom could have been done the same way in the other house, because I paid it.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. No, that's not what I'm talking about. He told me that he stood up to her.
Right.
And like, so is it not like maybe for the first time he's feeling confident in himself? He's got a newfound sense of freedom. Like, okay, I did the scariest thing, because that's when this whole change started.
Yeah, it was literally right after that.
It was right then. So could it not be that he faced one of his biggest fears and is realizing that, like, okay, well, maybe I am at a point where I can truly be me and I don't have to hide for fear of, you know.
Yep. 3 years. We've lived together.
It's not you.
Yeah, but that's a conversation that we could have had.
Not if it's not something he ever thought he could. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's something he was hiding from you. I think he's in a moment of self-discovery. He's found a new being able to stand up to her.
Right. There is a sense of confidence that's coming out of him.
Yes, his walk has changed. His walk has changed.
A little bit of everything.
But honestly, it might be him coming out of his shell, and you don't want to taper that. Let him if this is the first time in his life that he's actually felt free enough to explore what he wants and what he might actually be interested in, you just could give it a week and he decided that he doesn't.
It's just a phase.
He's never had the opportunity to feel confident enough to explore who he is as a person.
Right.
And he's standing up to her was that first big, like, oh my gosh, I did this. I never thought I could do this. Maybe I'm not the person I thought I was. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Lincoln.
Yeah. So if you look at it like that, I mean, he is very young. So he's trying to figure out who he is. He's realizing that he's stronger than he thought he was, and that this is giving him the strength to feel comfortable enough to explore these changes he might have been afraid to even mention before. You know what I mean? Not afraid to you, just afraid in general in life. Like, he's got a new sense of security because he stood up to her. So now he's willing to look into himself and be like, okay, well, maybe this is something I want to try. And he's confident. He's feeling more confident, so he's willing to do that.
Okay.
You gotta look like this. It's gonna go crazy for a little while, but it'll calm down.
Because he online.
Right.
Quite a bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my experiences, landing at one, I'm not given any kind of break to process stuff.
Right.
And it's 24 hours a day. It's leggings, it's this, it's wigs, it's makeup, it's this. And I'm like, you're not giving me a chance.
It's overbearing.
Right. Because this is something.
Because it's changing every day. Which is what you've been having every day.
Like, he's got to understand that it's not that there's anything wrong with these changes. It's just these are big changes. I need time to comprehend and remember and around.
But my challenge with is my attraction is to a man. That's what I'm married.
Right.
He's been very clear about that.
Yeah.
But
Attractions no. A woman.
No, I understand. I get what you're saying.
What do you think?
My brain is so hot.
Good.
That's why I was. You asked how these go.
It just I like this because this is. You see his empathy. He's trying. We struggle with it. It's harder. It's easier said than done.
I mean, I'm proud about
Being good at being empathetic is not being perfect at it. It's just making that effort.
Oh no!
Right.
And the feeling.
But here's the thing: if that is a hard boundary for you, then that's a conversation you'll have.
Which we've
had.
And
Yeah.
I
Well,
want to pull that in a little bit. We're going to get back on track, but this was a perfect example. Empathy, right? It's easier said than done, like I just said. But you see some of the struggles that you can have.
it's great. Like, see everything that you're saying, and your feelings are just as valid.
Right.
I also see his that.
It takes understanding from
Yeah.
both sides to make it work.
Completely where you're coming from, and your feelings are just as valid.
I want him to explore his creativity.
He does have. There's a confidence in him that has come out. Right. I'm very proud of him for that. But that much, it's overbearing, and I can understand that. Because it has been. In the household.
Yeah.
But he probably made it easy on you either, because we've been encouraging it a little bit. But I enjoy seeing him. He likes to call me dad and everything. So if I'm going to consider him my son, I have to. When there's nothing more encouraging and warming to see your kids feel proud and confident in themselves.
Yeah, I can,
you know what I mean?
See how it can be completely overbearing, completely 1000%. But then at the same time, there's something about the happiness. Like I don't think I've seen this look in that kid's eye. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I mean, this is a major life thing, and major life things sometimes change people. So,
Yep.
But I don't want it to change
the dynamic
to where I
I understand
step
that.
out,
right,
so that he can find someone who will accept it where I cannot.
Right.
You don't want that resentment.
But that is a possibility,
and that's what,
because you can't
already starting to
do. And that's the understanding each other. Right. Actually, I don't know if Landon be Suno. I wrote a song for Landon. I played it for you earlier, right? Him and Ava's relationship and everything like that. Like, sometimes you got to assess things and understand each other. And, sometimes if it gets rough, you got to be there united. If not, sometimes separation, love isn't always what can hold you together. Sometimes letting go of things because of love might be the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we want, but you got to be able to work through these, understand each other, where you're at in the moment of time. I love that. All right. So the question was, what steps do you take to ensure you're truly listening to someone else's perspective? You said, you're talking to them, you're taking the time, you're caring, you're trying to understand. Right? How about yourself? What are some steps you do to try to truly understand someone?
Something to relate, like my own personal, finding a way to personal, be able to share with them. I'll share a story that might not be similar to the same thing that they've dealt with, but to show them, like, I've been through a situation that made me feel the same way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes empathy is just showing them that someone cares. Like, you're going to say, "I'm trying to understand," is empathy.
Right.
You would have to understand. This has to get to the point where you actually truly understand somebody. Because sometimes it's hard, especially if the way that they've experienced life and the things they've been through so far fetched from what you have. It's hard to get to a point where you can understand. It's that effort trying to understand.
Actually,
is what matters.
The conversation we had a couple weeks ago, right? You were talking about, trauma in life and everything, like your trauma versus your kid's trauma. You freak out. Your son comes down and he's like, it's good for us all right now. We'll bring it back up. I want to take your story. Go ahead.
Oh, got it all the time. I'm very but one thing that I struggle with sometimes is being empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
I love him to death. I try so hard. He's 10. The Wi-Fi goes out, and it's the end of the world. Tears, screaming. He's coming downstairs screaming like I've got the magic Wi-Fi wand, and I'm like, at his age, like, just trying to survive life, just trying, trying to make sure somebody get fed, and here you are, crying, and I struggle with it so hard sometimes. I realize that for him, that is the end of the world. Like, that is his biggest worry. So when the Wi-Fi goes, he is this. That's what it feels to me and how I perceive the situation. He's perceiving it in a way that for him, it is, at the end of his day, his whole evening is ruined because now the Wi-Fi's out. He has no clue if it's going to come back on, when it's going to come back on. How much time he's going to waste? His game's going to be lost. Well, lose this gun.
So you're saying you empathize with him during that moment.
You have to a point where it was like, okay, no, it's not what it was not the worst thing that I had to worry about at 10 years old. Yeah, 10 years old, that's the end of his world for him.
But if that's the biggest thing,
that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. That's an achievement. I can say that.
Doing something.
Yeah. Yep. My child's biggest fear in life is the Wi-Fi going on.
And I could feel that.
He's that boy's never never concerned where the next meal is, nothing like that, Right.
So some of the things I can do, and I try hard, it takes a conscious effort, right? Like you said, it's easier said than done. But if you don't try, it's hard to do. So you have to, what I do is I have to recognize when I'm not empathizing with somebody and revert back and say, I'm sorry, I just did this with Landon the other day, like frustrated. I'm like, I've learned meeting him where he is. Kids these days are on their phones and everything. Communicating vocally isn't always the easiest sometimes, right? However, I can meet him where he's at and get the text and we can feel heart to heart and understand. The message gets across better and we get tighter, our relationship's tighter. Right, so I apologize. I'm like, look, I know I came at you the wrong way and everything. I should have done it, and I'm trying to change that. It takes that conscious effort. So those are the things that I'm doing personally to try to understand where someone's at. Like, he just graduated. He's 18. He's almost 19. Like, have his life together yet? And in a sense, I'm like expecting him to hurry up, because I, at 17, graduated, went in the military, and I lived with a single mom. And, his life is completely different. I talked to a buddy at work about this. It's like they didn't have the same life as us, right? So, and we struggle with these things. But this comes back to the topic you were talking. Like, there's going to be a good topic about did we raise our kids to be spoiled, or
are they spoiled or shaped?
Yep. Yeah. So it'll be a good one. All right. Anybody else have anything on that one? No. All right. Go on to the next one. Are there moments where empathy feels impossible? How do you navigate those challenges? Leela, LA.
So, my ex-husband and I had our divorce was not ugly, but the aftermath of our divorce was ugly. And then he just recently got divorced from the woman he married after me, and we were talking on the phone one day about my son, and he just kind of broke down and let loose all of these feelings and everything, and it was so insanely hard to sit on that phone and be all like, dude, it's gonna get better. Like, just it'll get better. Yeah, it sucks, but what can you do? You got all you can do is push on. So I wanted to be all like, I'm not here, did it to me,
Mm-hmm.
But even I was empathetic as hell, and just that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Right.
Was bite my tongue and be empathetic, because in that moment he had never experienced what I had been through 10 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now I have the tools that I can't, I can help him through it. Be the good person. So it's, bit my tongue and was there for the dude.
So
but then
you're saying there was a moment where empathy could have been impossible, but you navigated by it.
Very impossible.
But you did it.
Yes, because I just wanted to.
It was a conscious effort to make it happen.
Self-aware. You have to be self-aware.
Yep.
And
so
conscious effort.
I don't want to revert back to one of the questions, but one of the questions, the difficulty things about being empathetic and having empathy and stuff like that. I think one of those is being too empathetic, taking on too much, being too empathetic to other people, because it puts a lot of weight, right, on people. The people who can take it and take it and take it and take it, but like we said,
it's very draining.
It is very draining. Tanya posted something on Facebook earlier about it to this actual post right here, and I'm going to go and read it actually, because it is very, very lovely. We've got a lot of messages here. We'll find her page. Go ahead, Jojo. I don't want to interrupt you.
No.
Other moments.
Moments for me were I don't. I don't think I've actually encountered. Actually, that's not true. When with my addiction, I could not wrap my own head around what I had done to my literally to my life.
Right.
It's not, I was one of those drunks that when I did my drugs and everything like that, I didn't involve that shit in my family and all that stuff. Like, my family has had their view on that and everything like that, but, you know, I wasn't stealing in their house and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I didn't have drug dealers come to my house or at their house. You know, into myself and how it affected my work life and how I was viewed socially in like the areas that I lived in. Like, I was a party dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every bar knew me, all the owners. And no, but the owners would literally, we'll give you a tab of like $30, $40. We'll pay for your taxi ride because they knew I would get lit and entertain everybody in the damn bar.
Right.
That's bad. That's bad press.
So you
And I did that to myself.
it was a hard time to have empathy for yourself or for others to have empathy for
No. 'Cause I did all that to myself.
Mhm.
And I didn't deserve other people.
What did you do to get out of that?
I threw myself in rehab. I had to.
Right.
Well, I mean, I technically was dead, actually. So
Yeah,
I enjoying a choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
November 1st.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
2010, yeah, they were bringing my ass back from purple.
That's what it takes. The best lessons in life sometimes are the hardest ones. Now, I'm going to bring up that statement that Tanya said, right? Empathy. Being an empath can be draining at times for sure. We call it compassion fatigue in the practitioner world. So you have to learn when to turn it off, when to turn it on. I'm not powerful enough to change how people feel, but I can sit with them in their emotions and help by coaching the thoughts associated. Right? What does Tanya say all the time? Feelings
are not facts. Right.
It's a fact.
Which it is true.
I know. Scared all the time.
But I'll tell you what, I will say this. A single feeling can literally equate in a person's mind, body, and spirit to an A bomb landing and obliterating an entire city. It can be that powerful.
Yeah.
When that feeling takes over, being empathetic, trying to understand that kind of power, that will sap all the energy that you have,
right,
as an empath.
We talked about that as well.
So what she's saying in there is there's times to turn it on and off, but there's also filtering that's involved in it.
Right. Kind of like the boy who cried wolf.
Right.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Anything else to that? All right, we'll go to the next one. And all of these were to try to help see how we all deal with these things, right? Understanding each other, because this alone is empathy. So, the fan right there, I'll turn it off. What advice would you give someone struggling to show empathy in their relationships? And relationships aren't just marriages, aren't just boyfriend, girlfriend, it's friendships. It's, what advice would you give to someone struggling to show that empathy in their relationship?
It's basically the same thing one of the things that I say all the time is, do your best to meet people where they are at that time, not where you expect them to be or want them to be. You know what I mean? I would love for my husband to say, this doesn't work. I'm a dude. I got to be with you. I would love that. I can't. That's not where he's at right now.
Right.
So I have to meet him over here and tell him, okay, you can do this, do your thing, I'm just going to be supportive over here.
Right.
I'm still supporting you, but I have to do this at arm's length.
Right.
You know?
At your own pace as well.
Right.
It's not to say that you won't be accepting or whatever of it at a later point, but right now that's not where you're at.
But
he has to understand that.
But what he's not understanding either is when you hit me with things, or anyone, well, you'll come around to this. You'll get used to it.
Now you're shoving it.
Yeah, it's like, no. Right, exactly. Right.
Kind of like the religion thing.
Yeah.
Right? What was the billboard?
Oh, yeah. Religion is like having a penis. It's wonderful that you have one. It's great that you want to show it off to the world and everything like that, but you don't have the right to cram it down anyone's throat. It's the best billboard I ever read in my life.
I got to see a picture of that. All right. How about you, LA? What advice would you give to someone struggling to show empathy in their relationships?
Question. If you are struggling to understand where someone is coming from, ask genuine, open-ended questions. Get them to explain.
What about that person is struggling to show empathy? Not you showing empathy. So if your husband or whatever, your friend or whatever is struggling to show empathy towards you, they're listening to respond instead of listening to understand. What can you help them with to have empathy and understand more?
I would try and find a situation that I know that I would try and figure out a way to put it in their, like, if, for example, Dustin has made the comment to me a million times that he does not see how I can sit on TikTok Live and do makeup for 6-8 hours straight. He's like, I don't see how you can do that. And it would annoy him. He's like, I'm just gonna do it. And finally, I was like, you know how you have your gaming days where I'm not supposed to interrupt you and you'll sit at the computer literally all day gaming?
It's no different.
And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, same thing. Like, it's the exact same thing. You're sitting there doing something you enjoy. It's taking your mind away. I was like, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my makeup. I'm conversing on TikTok. Like, it's my video game. And since then, he still occasionally will be like, do it. But he doesn't bring it up. He understands. I was able to put it in terms he understands. Sometimes you got to figure out how to word it so that in their terminology, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
what is? I think this.
Sister and I. So my twin sister. We're so different from each other. She is a very much, you say what you gotta say, you say what I gotta say. If we don't agree, we don't agree. It's done. That is not me. Not in the slightest. Well, as she likes to put it, beat a dead horse with the same conversation over and over and over again. Because eventually,
we've had this conversation.
Eventually, at some point, you're gonna say something slightly different. And what you're trying to explain to me is finally going to click, and I'm going to understand you. Or something I'm going to say slightly different, and it's going to click with you.
Right.
And I would rather have the same conversation if it's productive. You know what I mean? If we're both attempting to understand each other, to come to some kind of resolution, or just have a debate, have a conversation. We can talk for same conversation topic over and over. If it's constructive. If you're trying to explain to me and get me to understand your point of view, not change, not agree with, understand.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I don't care if you agree with me or not. Your opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. I understand where you come from. We've got more connection.
Here's some of Lay's work.
Right.
Shout out. Look at this work. I got your TikTok on. There it is. Tickety taco.
He's going to work on now.
On them. Is it painted?
Yeah, I have the inside painted. Got a little bit more than mount to it, but I'm going to bring it over here to apply. So I can do pictures here. The videos here because there's way more.
Let me see if I can play this way. It'll play right here. There we go.
That's me, great.
Caller LA.
Hello.
None of my hair's fine long enough to do that.
All right, so
What advice would you give?
the advice I would give is kind of the point. So you try to relate a situation to something that they can relate to, right? But also, maybe I need to try to be more empathetic and understand where they're coming from even more. Because sometimes that understanding is very hard, is very deep rooted, right? So if I could understand why they're not being empathetic, maybe I can relate a little bit more, or maybe find it easier to relate with them. You know what I mean? But it goes back to the other statement. You have to try to understand them for them to understand you as well. Meet them where they are at that moment. And you told me many times, I just want someone to listen and understand where I'm coming from. I've heard, you haven't said it specifically about you, but people want that. They want to know that they're there. Yes, they want to be heard. Yes.
You know?
And if you're there,
they're right. Fix it. Sometimes you just want to know that someone is listening.
Right. And
someone hears me.
This here, I've been extreme with it too. Like I said, I've literally been like, just shut the fuck up. I like, no, you're responding without me even finishing the sentence. Like, and you're just stop, just stop. If this is how it's going to be, we can walk away. Sometimes you have to walk away from a situation for people to understand. Like, that's where you're at.
Well, sometimes you need to. Sometimes the energy has to calm down. Like, you need to calm down. Sometimes you need to step away because you're not mentally in a place where you can.
You want to solve now, but the other one doesn't. And
yeah, and you're not mentally in a place where you can put yourself in their shoes. You're not mentally capable of it.
Right.
If you're so angry or frustrated, then you need to walk away and because you can't be empathetic in that situation either.
Right. And sometimes walking away, right, that helps. To me, sometimes that helps them understand, right?
I can't.
Go ahead.
I can't tell you how many times Dustin and I have. Well, we don't fight, but we'll have a little argument. Like how many arguments we've had, and like we'll get so mad at each other, we're just like we go our separate ways, and then like 15, 20 minutes later, one of us comes to the other one, and we're like,
sorry.
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
And then we're like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, but we do it to each other, but it's usually like, I looked it up. It's usually over something stupid.
Yeah.
Just like, I looked it up.
You're not trying to prove a point.
I was what? You know, and we do that to each other. But I mean, sometimes you just need to calm down. Just calming down and removing yourself from the situation, you're able to look at it. You know, you're able to look at it from a more neutral standpoint.
Right.
You're not in that moment trying to fight for your next train of thought.
And sometimes no response is the response.
Yeah, sometimes no response.
Sometimes that's the best response because that saves both sides.
Yep, because you're going to say
But you'll never get anywhere being quiet.
No, I agree with that.
You'll
I agree.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Oh, the squeaky wheel does get the grease.
Every now and then.
But the baby get that.
Every now and then you just gotta, know when to cut it off and readdress later. Like,
Right.
shelf it for now.
Yep.
And, let it go. Like, we ain't gonna go there tonight. Let that one go. Shelf it. But you can't not respond forever.
Right. I've said it many times about, arguments and stuff like that. Like, I'm going to walk away, right? You're not empathizing with me. You're not seeing where I'm coming from because you just keep coming at me. It's going to make me angry. And, when we go to that apologetic moment after the argument and everything, you come back and you're like, said those things I didn't mean to really say. Well, no, actually, in the moment, I meant them. That's why I said them. That's the reality of it. You need to understand that. You don't agree with that? When you say those things, why'd you say them if you didn't mean them?
We don't. I don't.
I'm not saying with you and your husband. I'm saying
relationship-wise, that's a whole other subject for me, I guess. Is we don't have those. In anger, we don't speak to each other any different than we would speak to each other when in bed comes together.
And I'm just saying, friendships, anything throughout life. I'm not saying even now.
Yeah. You meant it when I said it.
Yeah. I'm sorry for saying them. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. But, like, we weren't empathizing with each other at that time because, I don't have to solve this now, right? I need that cool off time, right? I need you to understand that. And if you need that, I need to understand that, right? And I need to try to understand, you want to solve it now? Let me slow myself down maybe and cool myself off. That's why I need to step away, right? So understanding where we are at that moment in time is extremely important. That's how we can empathize.
Another big thing though is also learning compromise, because if you're, because I'm the kind of person like I want to call it now. Let's talk about it now. Let's handle it now. Whereas some people are, I need to step away. We need to table it. We're not to it later.
Pull off a little bit.
You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to learn when to compromise. Be like, okay, fine. Shelf it for now, but
There's nothing wrong with it.
To be addressed soon.
But to your point of be quiet, don't be silent. If it needs to be addressed and you walk away, you got to be sure to go back and readdress it, because there's still tension. There's resistance. So, anything else for that? Nope. So this next area that I have, cultivating empathy. We kind of touched bases on this quite a bit. Is listening without judgment. That was one of the barriers, right? Judgment and everything. Mixing stones may break my bone. I think we've killed this horse. Focus on truly hearing what someone's trying to say, rather than responding. Like I said, you're responding, and I haven't even said what's coming out of my mouth completely, right? Or you're trying to finish my sentence for me, or something like that. And we're all guilty of it. Like, I'm not trying to say I don't, And some of us are more hardcore and like very boisterous about our feelings and everything like that, right? Passion. Yes.
Passion.
Oh, it was aggressive.
No, there is aggressive too. It was aggressive.
Passion.
I understand. I empathize with you. This whole thing we talked about, she's very passionate. You see how she is, right? During our hunt, it was our first, I guess you could say, professional style hunts. We've been doing the hunt for this was our 6th year, right? First year actually doing makeup. We had makeup artists, and we had none of that.
Everybody did their own makeup.
We weren't fully organized. We just kind of, I do a lot of things, and I fly by the seat of my pants and figure it out along the way. No, we weren't.
We weren't working. You said, here's the makeup, figure it out.
And then you have, we had 50 volunteers, maybe a quarter to half of those people were getting makeup done, right? We had LA, we had Smiley, we had Gabby, we had several people doing makeup and everything, but there was no who's doing this, there was no organization, right? And in the end, there was some tension, right? And the word, I'm still going to paint this across the wall. I had some conversations with LA about, you're a little aggressive with how you react and things like that, right? And she exploded on me and exploded on things, and things happen. I'm gonna say it. She's the one that the story was about earlier, the empathizing. They empathized with her and for her on that situation, and I think it helped. I tried hard to get people to understand, and I think people do. What do you want?
Yes. They weren't looking at it from inside.
Right.
All they were acknowledging was how I reacted, not necessarily what I was reacting to. How I reacted was not the case. We've acknowledged and established this, and but I feel like if they would have paid more attention to what was going on,
try to understand and
try to be a little bit more, they would have. Because honestly, in all of that, it felt like everybody was like, look how they feel, LA, look how they feel, LA, look how they feel, LA, and no one was all like, but how does LA feel?
Right.
And it was like, I understand how they feel. No one sees how I feel. And it took several conversations, but eventually,
in the end, got killed it. The makeup, in the end, it doesn't even matter. I won't even try to sing, but I think that the empathizing is important. You have to understand where somebody's at in that moment in time.
But it's hard to do.
It is. Like I said, it's easier said than done. But what do we do at those moments? We have to try. Oh, you have to give it effort. It has to be a conscious effort. And sometimes, if you can't empathize, maybe that's not where you need to be, right? Like, you have to understand. Like, this haunt family, this is what we call it. This is a haunt family. This is how we treat it. Everybody here should feel welcome, and if they don't, they should be able to explain why, so we can understand. Yes, we try that hard because we care.
Because it's something completely unknown. Like, I mean, we had conversations where, things were said that I didn't even remember things were said. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes until it's pointed out to you,
you don't know.
You don't realize.
Right. And just like this, these are difficult, uncomfortable conversations at times, but if they're not had, things can get bad. Things can get ugly. We had to address those situations, right? We've talked it through, worked it through. We've learned from it. We're going to grow from it, and we're going to do even better this year, right? So empathy matters because of situations like that, right? We're still here, right? I love Emily. She's one of our makeup artists. She's doing the thing. And to see somebody, grow from where now she can call herself a makeup artist, right? There it is. All right. Can you block your face? So ask all these questions. I'm going to challenge everybody with something here. Empathy is a skill that we can develop with practice, right? It's easier said than done, but if we don't make a conscious effort at doing it, trying to understand, trying to feel what somebody else is feeling or going through or anything like that, right? I challenge everybody to try that. Back to the conversation we had at the haunt, right? Talk to somebody. Get to know them. If they knew who LA was, they would have known, like, she's very passionate, right? Now it's aggressive, but passion equals aggressive, right? They would understand if they knew her. They can empathize with her and understand where she was coming from, right? She was able to do that. She's like, oh, it's not like I was like, well, you were. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. I never would have meant to do that. You know what I mean? Cussing and all that stuff. There's nothing. We work through it. This is the challenge that I say, right? Listen without judgment. Let people finish their sentences. Try to understand them. Don't try to respond. You don't even have to respond at all, right? Slow down. And what do we say all the time? Iron sharpens iron, right? If you see me messing up in this challenge, call me out on it. We have to have thick skin when people are going to call us out. If iron sharpens iron, we have to be able to hold each other accountable, hold ourselves accountable. If you're going to take it to offense that, you corrected you, or I'm going to take offense to you correcting me or whatever, maybe we have a little more work to do. But we're there to build each other up, not tear each other down. It can be as simple as just reaching out, asking them how they're doing. You still doing good? You're good, right? We can do these things. That's what we're here for. We're building each other up. We can understand where somebody's at in that moment in life, right? They may have struggles. They may have joys. Maybe they want to share those things with people, their joys. And if someone's just like going to pass them on or whatever, you could have turned their happy day into a shitty day, right? So empathy isn't only for the good. It's only for the bad times and understanding. It's understanding their good moments too, right? They need that. Sometimes when someone's built up, one bad thing can turn 1,000 good things to shit.
Yeah.
But also vice versa.
Right.
You be having a shit day and one little tiny good day.
Very true. It's a perspective, right? It's mindset, and we have a mindset podcast coming up. Right. You have to try. We'd love to see what anybody has to say on social media. We probably don't have a lot of viewers tonight. That's fine. We're going to grow this thing to something big because these conversations matter. Last few things I want to say is empathy is more than just a feeling. It's the action. It's that trying to understand, trying to slow down, feel what that other person is, understand where they're at in that moment in time. right? And if we hold each other accountable, if we build these things, will we solve world hunger? I say this all the time now. I don't know why, but will we solve world hunger? No. But we could try.
Mm-hmm.
I try this, you affect one person's life, then a person like, oh, and then it can spread like wildflowers. You know what I mean? So
The flowers, no fire.
correct. Well, yeah. One's good, one's bad. Well, it depends on who you talk to. People don't like wildflowers either. So empathy is about being present in the time. You know, not where you want that person to be.
Right.
You need to meet that person where they are today, and the same them towards you. You know,
Or in that moment.
right? That in that moment.
Well, this is very big in addiction as well. Yeah. I can tell you several people that I've counseled and everything like that, and it's minute to minute, second to second,
Right.
sometimes. Grab onto the doorknob and hang on. Tie yourself, with the towel, so you don't leave this room. Whatever you have to do.
Right.
Stay on the phone with someone, whatever. Take them out for coffee. Get them out of their house, out of their head.
Right.
Recognize that stuff. But if you don't take that second to meet them where they are at that moment, you could lose them.
Right.
And we could lose them forever.
Even somebody who has their life together and everything. Right.
Oh, it takes no time.
Yes.
Off the rails. No
Try to
time.
be empathetic, be a good person, and understanding. Because there's been too many people. Look at Robin Williams. Look at Chester. Right. These people have made positive, major impacts on people. Right. And people were like, "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you," but they didn't know. If people didn't know with Chester, listen to all of his lyrics. Like if they didn't know, like that's a problem. He was putting it out there for everybody, but did he have a good enough circle of people there to be with him? Who knows? We weren't there. Same thing with Robin Williams, right?
Well, Robin did, and it was the diagnosis that was coming down the pike that he knew the life that he was going to live the rest of his days as, and to put his family and his children through that, he was not going to do that.
Right.
It was not a selfish act in his eyes, and if the rest of the world sees it that way, that's their choice, but they're going to watch when Bruce Willis goes through this, and his family's already going through it as he struggles. It's, yeah.
He was putting an end to what he didn't want his family to suffer.
He knew he and his family were going to go, and he was not going to let them suffer.
As a society, we should be empathetic with
and the compassionate side of suicide.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Jack Kevorkian, you can say whatever you want about him.
In his mind, he was doing the right thing, and those people felt he was doing the right thing.
They came to him for that reason.
So many things in this world are open to perspective, right?
And condemn, judgment, condemn, condemnation. Stop judging.
Yep.
Whatever your belief is,
you weren't there to judge.
Yeah, listen.
I don't know if I have the pin yet, but the pin is, don't hate me because I sin differently than you. That would have been good for last week's, but All right. So, final thing is, let's commit to bridging the gaps between all of us, right? That's part of our challenge. As all of us, you're included in that. Right? We are here as a family, we are here as friends, we are here to hold each other accountable, we're here to understand and be empathetic. Easier said than done, so because we're going to fail at this at times. We will. But we are here for each other to make sure we can pull ourselves out of that. And pull ourselves out of the situation where, we're being too empathetic for other people. We have to hold each other and that person just needs to find themselves. You can't help that person at that point, right? Kind of back to one of the comments there. Yeah. That's the last thing I have to say. You guys have any closing statements?
Well, one of the things that I was going to actually talk about, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely.
So when you talk about empathy and sympathy and stuff like that, right? In normal psychopathy, right? You look at what is a serial killer classified as? Are they a psychopath or a sociopath? Right? What is a spree killer? A psychopath or a sociopath, right? Psychopaths have, they do have the ability to empathize, sympathize. Those are your spree killers. They're the ones who, like, I forget the guy's name. His name was Dan something. He went into the race car cafe in Seattle, Washington, and shot, I think it was 8 people in there. But 10 years prior, something similar had happened. And they were at a family dinner, and it came on the news that this man went in and shot up, the store. And I can't believe, if that was somebody in my family, I would be devastated. That is sympathy, right? But 10 years from then, he goes in and does the same thing, right? There's sympathy and empathy, but that's a spree killing. So when you look at a serial killer, though, there is no sympathy, there is no empathy. You are not a person to them. So mentally, they do not empathize with what they're doing to a person, making them feel a certain way, hurting them.
Right.
They don't sympathize when they kill someone and everything like that. They take trophies. They relive these things. Their sympathy and empathy goes to sexual arousal and the excitement and adrenaline rush that comes from the killing. The reason why I'm bringing that up, we should be grateful that we have the ability to empathize and sympathize and everything like that. That our mental state is not in a place where we can't do these things.
Thankful you're not, sir.
Yeah. But
I'm a psychopath.
But if you were a spree killer, the sociopaths are the ones that,
What was
they're not able to
the story?
Recognize that.
You talked about the serial killer that cannibalized his victims a little bit, and there was a Netflix show. Why can't I think of his name?
Dahmer.
Oh
yeah.
You mentioned something very important about that. Like his dad and how he wished he could have gone back and all that stuff. Can you explain that here?
Well, his dad, that's one of his biggest regrets still to this day. I should have recognized these signs. All the signs were there. My wife and I were fighting, and we got divorced and the whole 9 yards, but I was the one who introduced Jeffrey to taxidermy and all that stuff. We had this old ramshackle shack out there. He was constantly bringing more and more and more bodies, of dead animals and everything like that. He's cutting them up and all this stuff. And I showed him how to do that stuff. I should have recognized him, right? And I should have gotten him into programs instead of pawning him off around and around and around. Now, look at what my child has done.
Right. And now
it's not that it's his fault. Yes, there's red flags, and I wish more people would see them.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you also have to look at, like, children the way that they're raised today. Look at, I don't know, the whole Columbine situation. Both of those boys, they're children. Yeah, but they're children. Those children were raised by loving families. Yes, they were raised by loving families. What drove them to do what they did was the bullying and the torment through school.
Right.
But the parents would be blamed first, right? That's just how you raise your kid. You beat your kid senseless, and he's just going to go and shoot. No, he took that out. They took that out on the kids that were horrible to them.
Right.
And the other kids.
On the side of that, though, if the kids were being bullied and everything like that, did the kids have a good enough relationship with their parents where they can talk about these things to take control of it, or were they raised good and everything but disconnected? To where they didn't have that relationship.
Kind of was the norm, was being emotionally connected.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't, regardless of how good of a relationship you had,
Right.
Back then you didn't.
Right.
It's just like with, Dahmer's father and everything. He's like, what do you say to the police? He just keeps bringing all these corpses home. He keeps cutting them up and everything like that. Nobody back then talked about the truth. Where we test, for serial killer mentality.
Right.
The psychopathy to find out if these teenagers are going down that road. Let's start reworking.
Right.
The neural pathways, serotonin levels. Something's off balance.
Right. But we have to bring it back to the empathy, right? People, if they could have understood Albert, could have understood Columbine kids, somebody could have prevented that. But it takes somebody taking a conscious effort to try to be like, don't bully that person, right? Don't be that person. It's hard in school, right? It's hard to do it. Like I said, easier said than done. But when you're in school and you're kids, you don't want to be, a little sissy. Oh, you're just gonna stick up for you,
right?
You're damn right I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm going to end this episode with empathy is hard to do sometimes, right? It is, like I said many times during this podcast, it's easier said than done. But if you don't try to understand and meet somebody where they're at in that moment in life and understand, put yourself in their shoes. If you don't try it, it's going to be very difficult to try to change around us, right?
Awesome. Autism, you're a
Yeah, everyone deserves to be heard because that is empathy. Right?
Plug it in.
And you don't have to respond; just be there in the moment, understand, listen. You don't even have to understand. You should try, But I close with, like I said, every episode we have a song that is very relevant to the conversation. I ask that everybody takes the time, to listen to the song. Time is put into these, but they matter, and music can connect to the soul. You know what I mean? You guys introduced me to this Suno app that creates these songs. You write the words, and you just it'll put it to music for you.
It's all AI driven.
Yep, AI music. But we write the actual lyrics. We have to do several iterations to get it right. So it's not like we're just throwing together. We send several iterations and versions and everything, like to pick the right one, right? I want to thank everybody for joining. I also want to say this conversation could strike some crazy feelings and emotions. This isn't meant to be medical or professional advice. This is right now 3 people talking, having a conversation based on our feelings, our emotions, our experiences. That's all this is, right? If you relate, good. If you don't, that's okay as well, right? Try to understand where somebody's at. There's a disclosure at the end. I want everybody to listen to it. And if you need any help, there's some numbers on there, some text messages, things that you can send out to get any help you may need. But for that, I appreciate everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you for joining us here on Courage to Converse. Our intention is to discuss tough topics, reflect on personal experiences, and explore paths for growth and understanding. I want to acknowledge that some of these conversations may have touched on sensitive or challenging issues. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or support. If you or someone you know is struggling, resources are available to help. In the U.S., you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or text HOME to 741741 to reach the crisis text line. Remember, our goal here is to spark meaningful conversations while fostering respect, understanding, and personal growth. See you next time.
You see me standing here, but do you see my scars? The roads I've walked are different from where you are. The weight I've carried mask the storm that rages within. A handshake doesn't show where my soul has been. But as I reach for you and you reach for me, we find that understanding is the key. Take my hand, let me walk you through, and together I'll see the world through you. Walk in each other's shoes, see what we've seen, feel the stories woven through the spaces between. Step side by side through laughter and tears. Empathy grows when we dissolve the fears. We all carry burdens, some heavier than most, but together we can lighten the load we host. Understanding flows when we take the time to share our stories, yours and mine. Walk in each other's shoes, see what we've seen, feel the stories woven through the spaces between. Step side by side through laughter and tears. Empathy grows when we dissolve the fears. So take a step and I'll take one too. In your shoes I'll see the world through you. Together we'll find what's lost in the clues. A world of compassion when we walk in each other's shoes.